The vast emptiness of space seemed to press against the viewport as Governor Ralger stared at the blue-green orb hanging in the darkness. Earth, the third planet of an unremarkable star system in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, looked peaceful, almost serene. The intelligence reports had been consistent. A primitive species, barely capable of interplanetary travel, with no significant defensive capabilities beyond their atmosphere. A simple acquisition, the High Council had called it. An easy victory to add to his already impressive record of conquests. Ralger's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among the Eldari. The boardroom generals back at Central Command had been explicit. This would be nothing more than a training exercise with live targets. Earth would fall within a standard rotation, its resources cataloged, and its population processed for labor distribution within a month. "Governor," came a voice from behind him. "The fleet has achieved optimal deployment formation." Ralger turned to face Deputy Commander Gyrith, whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the ship's blue lights. The deputy's 4 eyes were fixed on his data pad, already calculating resource extraction projections. "Excellent," Ralger said, turning back to the viewport. "Any sign of defense systems?" "None, Governor. As expected, their primitive satellites merely observe. They have rudimentary projectile weapons on their surface and some nuclear capabilities, but nothing that can reach us here. No energy barriers, no orbital platforms, no fleet to speak of." Ralger nodded, though a familiar sensation, one he'd learned to trust over his many conquests, nagged at the back of his mind. Something felt wrong. The calm was too complete. In his experience, even the most primitive species typically sent desperate transmissions or launched whatever pathetic defenses they had when a fleet appeared in their system. Earth had done nothing, simply continued spinning in silence. "Deploy the scout vessels," Ralger ordered. "I want direct atmospheric readings and a closer look at their population centers." "Immediately, Governor." Gyrith turned sharply and relayed the orders to the bridge crew. Within moments, 6 sleek reconnaissance vessels detached from the main fleet, their streamlined hulls designed for atmospheric penetration. Ralger watched as they accelerated toward the blue planet, becoming small points of light against its vast oceans. The bridge hummed with activity. Officers exchanged jokes about how they might spend their shore leave once the planet was secured. Some discussed which Earth resources might fetch the highest prices in the galactic markets. Others debated how Earth's inhabitants would rank as servants compared to other conquered species. "Governor," called the communications officer suddenly, her voice tense. "We've lost contact with Scout Group Alpha." Ralger's head snapped toward her. "All of them?" "Yes, sir. Complete signal loss. No distress beacon, no emergency protocols engaged." Silence fell across the bridge. Losing a single scout to a malfunction was unusual, but possible. Losing all 6 simultaneously was statistically impossible without hostile action. "Perhaps they encountered some atmospheric phenomenon not in our records," suggested Gyrith, though his voice lacked conviction. Ralger's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of agitation. "Show me their last known positions." The main holographic display activated, showing a 3-dimensional representation of Earth. 6 red dots blinked near the planet's northern hemisphere, specifically over a large body of water the humans called the Pacific Ocean. "No weapons fire detected before communication loss," reported the tactical officer. "No energy signatures consistent with defensive systems." "Could their technology be more advanced than our intelligence suggested?" asked Gyrith quietly. Ralger clicked his mandibles in irritation. "Impossible. The Eldari intelligence network has never been so drastically wrong." And yet, as he stared at the planet below, that sensation of wrongness grew stronger. In all his years commanding conquest fleets, he had never encountered a species that simply absorbed an attack without response. Even the most pacifistic races begged for mercy, attempted diplomacy, or at least screamed into the void as they died. Earth's silence was unnerving. "Prepare a larger reconnaissance force," he ordered after a moment. "I want 20 vessels, armed and with full sensor suites." If there is some defense system we've missed, I want identified. Governor, Jareth's voice dropped to a whisper. If I may suggest, perhaps we should conduct additional long-range scans before committing more ships? Ralger turned to his deputy, noting the unusual caution from an officer typically eager for combat. Are you afraid, Jareth, of a primitive world with no space fleet? No, Governor, but something about this feels incorrect. Ralger understood the sentiment, but wouldn't show weakness before the crew. We proceed as planned. The High Council expects results, not hesitation. As the orders went out and the second, larger scout force prepared to launch, Ralger returned to the viewport, studying Earth with newly critical eyes. The vast oceans, the swirling cloud patterns, the scattered lights of cities on the night side, all appeared normal. Yet that persistent sense of disquiet would not fade. Why aren't you responding, little world? He murmured to himself. What are you waiting for? The 20 scout ships launched, their engines flaring briefly before they vanished into the darkness between the fleet and Earth. Ralger watched them go, unable to shake the growing certainty that he was missing something vital. Something that might make this simple acquisition considerably more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The command deck fell into tense silence as all eyes tracked the progress of the scout ships. Unlike the previous group, these vessels maintained constant communication, transmitting data streams back to the fleet in real time. First atmospheric boundary in 30 seconds, announced the tactical officer. Ralger crossed his upper arms, his lower pair resting on his ceremonial blade. His species had conquered 17 star systems under his command. This would simply be the 18th. Yet still, that nagging doubt persisted. If Earth was truly defenseless, why had it been left alone by the other galactic powers for so long? And worse, why was it meeting its end with such eerie silence? The great oceanic expanse of the Pacific stretched beneath the Aldari scout ships, its dark blue waters reflecting the distant sun. Captain Merrill, commanding the lead vessel, kept his eyes fixed on the sensor displays as they penetrated deeper into Earth's atmosphere. Still no response from planetary defenses, he reported to the fleet, continuing descent to surface scanning altitude. His second-in-command gestured toward a reading. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the ocean floor. Faint but consistent. Specify. Unknown source, sir. Not matching any known human power signatures. It's as if the ocean itself is pulsing. Merrill frowned. Focus sensors on that area. Send a submersible probe. As the scout ships hovered over the vast Pacific, a small cylindrical device detached from the lead vessel, plunging into the dark waters below. The probe's feed appeared on Merrill's console, showing nothing but murky ocean for the first 100 meters. Then, at 500 meters depth, something massive moved across the camera's field of vision. What was that? Merrill leaned forward, his four eyes widening. The probe continued its descent, passing 1,000 meters, then 2,000. The pressure readings approached levels that should crush any structure made with Earth's known materials. At 3,000 meters, the probe's lights illuminated something that made Merrill's blood freeze in his veins. A vast geometric structure, clearly artificial, sprawled across the ocean floor. Its dark metal surface absorbed the probe's light rather than reflecting it. No algae or sea life clung to its perfect angles. It appeared untouched by the corrosive seawater despite what must have been centuries of submersion. Captain, his sensor officer's voice shook. That structure is releasing energy. The probe's feed abruptly cut to static. Merrill tapped his communications array. Governor Ralger, we've discovered an artificial structure beneath the Pacific Ocean. Massive, clearly not primitive technology. We've lost a probe investigating it. Before Ralger could respond, the sensor officer shouted, "Energy spike from the ocean floor." Merrill had just enough time to look up and see the water beneath his ship begin to churn and boil before the comm link went dead. On the command deck of the flagship, Ralger watched in stunned silence as the signals from all 20 scout ships vanished simultaneously. "What is happening?" he demanded, slamming a fist onto the console. No one answered because no one knew. The tactical displays showed nothing. No weapons fire, no explosions, simply 20 ships there one moment and gone the next. "Governor," the communications officer called, her voice unnaturally high. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through," Ralger ordered, expecting to finally hear the pleas or threats he'd been waiting for. But when the main screen activated, it displayed only a series of symbols in no language any officer on the bridge recognized. The symbols shifted and rearranged themselves, as if attempting to find a form the Aldari might understand. "Is this some primitive attempt at communication?" Jirith wondered aloud. "No," said a quiet voice from the back of the bridge. Officer Lysina, the fleet's intelligence specialist, stepped forward. Her slender form seemed tense as she studied the symbols. "This appears to be some form of ancient cipher. I've seen fragmentary references to similar patterns in very old archival data." "Meaning what?" Ralger demanded. "Meaning," Lysina said carefully, "that what we're seeing may not be from the humans at all. At least, not their current civilization." Ralger was about to demand clarification when the symbols suddenly coalesced into recognizable Aldari script. The message was 3 words: "Withdraw or perish." A threat. Jirith laughed nervously. From a species with no space combat capability? But Ralger didn't share his deputy's dismissive attitude. Something about the precision of the translation, the way the unknown system had so quickly deciphered Aldari written language, spoke of capabilities far beyond what Earth should possess. "Governor," Lysina approached his command station, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "There may be relevant information you should know. During my pre-mission research, I encountered certain legends, old stories passed among spacefaring species about Earth." "We don't have time for folklore, officer," Ralger growled. "With respect, Governor, some legends have kernels of truth." She pressed a data chip into his hand. "The stories speak of massive warships called Dreadnoughts that once defended Earth against an ancient threat. Ships that were supposedly hidden away when the threat was contained, but never destroyed." Ralger scoffed, but took the chip nonetheless. Ancient warships wouldn't be a match for modern Aldari firepower. According to the legends, these weren't just any warships. They were said to be... She hesitated, as if embarrassed to continue. "Said to be what?" Ralger demanded. "Living metal," Lysina finished. "Sentient ships, capable of adapting to any threat. The stories claim they were buried in Earth's oceans, lying dormant until needed again." Under normal circumstances, Ralger would have disciplined an officer for bringing such superstitious nonsense to his attention during a military operation. But the lost scout ships, the strange message, the unnatural silence of the planet below, all of it combined to make him pause. "Governor," Jirith interrupted, "the planet's oceans are showing unusual activity. Thermal readings indicate massive energy discharges beneath the surface of the Pacific." Ralger turned back to the main view screen, just as the placid blue ocean far below began to churn. A vast circular disturbance spread across the water, kilometers wide and growing. "Magnify," he ordered, his voice suddenly dry. The image zoomed in on the disturbance. The ocean wasn't merely churning, it was boiling, steam rising in massive clouds as something enormous displaced millions of tons of water. "By the first stars," whispered someone on the bridge. From the depths of the Pacific Ocean, a massive form was rising. Water cascaded from its immense hull as it broke the surface. A ship unlike anything in the known galaxy. Black as the void between stars, its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No viewports, no visible propulsion systems, nothing that would mark it as a vessel designed by organic minds. Its shape was vaguely triangular, but with edges and angles that seemed to shift slightly as one looked at them, as if the laws of geometry held no sway over its form. It rose higher, water still streaming from recesses in its hull, silent as death itself. Its size became apparent as it cleared the ocean completely, at least 5 kilometers from bow to stern, dwarfing the largest Aldari warships. "Impossible," Jirith breathed. No planetary civilization could hide something of that scale. As they watched in stunned silence, the massive ship continued to rise, seemingly unconcerned with gravity or aerodynamics. It cleared the atmosphere without visible propulsion, coming to rest in low orbit, a black shadow against Earth's blue backdrop. Then another disturbance began in the Atlantic Ocean. "Governor," the tactical officer's voice shook. "We're detecting another energy signature identical to the first, but from the other side of the planet." Before Ralger could respond, a second massive vessel breached the Atlantic waters, rising with the same impossible grace as the first. Then a third emerged from the Indian Ocean. "The legends," Lysina whispered. "The Dreadnoughts." Ralger's mind raced. Nothing in his training or experience had prepared him for this. These vessels, if they could even be called that, defied everything the Aldari knew about Earth's technological capabilities. Either the intelligence had been catastrophically wrong, or these ships were not of human origin. Or, most disturbingly, they were human technology so advanced it appeared alien even to a spacefaring empire. "Governor," Jareth's voice had lost all its earlier confidence. "Your orders?" Ralger stared at the three massive dreadnoughts, now positioned in Earth's orbit, forming a perfect triangle around the planet. They had made no aggressive moves yet, launched no fighters, fired no weapons. They simply waited. "Hail them," he ordered finally. "All frequencies open, Governor." Ralger straightened his posture, trying to project authority despite the cold fear gripping his insides. "This is Governor Ralger of the Aldari Expansion Fleet. We claim this system in the name of the Aldari Dominion. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The silence stretched for what felt like eternity. The bridge crew held their breath, watching the impassive black ships floating in Earth's orbit. Then, rather than audio response, the main view screen flickered again. The same strange symbols appeared briefly before resolving into Aldari text once more. "We are Earth's guardians. You are trespassing. Your presence has awakened what should remain sleeping. Depart immediately." "Guardians?" Jareth turned to Ralger. "Hidden defenders? This makes no sense. Our intelligence indicated humans are their own masters, with no protector species." Lysina stepped forward again. "The legends never suggested the dreadnoughts were built by another species. They were supposedly created by humans themselves in a forgotten era." "Impossible," Jareth scoffed. "These humans barely understand atomic energy. They could never have created such vessels." As they argued, the tactical officer suddenly called out, "Governor!" Spatial distortion detected at the edge of the system. All eyes turned to the long-range scanners. Beyond Neptune's orbit, space itself seemed to fold and twist as if something was pushing through from elsewhere. The fabric of reality tore open, and through the wound emerged something vast and dark. Unlike the geometric precision of the dreadnoughts, this new arrival was organic in appearance. If something so fundamentally wrong could be called organic. It resembled a massive cephalopod constructed of shadow, with tentacle-like appendages that seemed to both exist in normal space and somehow extend beyond it. Where it passed, stars briefly winked out, as if even light could not escape its presence. "What is that?" Ralger's question came out barely above a whisper. No one answered because no one knew. The sensors couldn't get a reading on it. No mass, no energy signature, nothing that would indicate it was a physical object rather than some bizarre astronomical phenomenon. Yet it moved with purpose, accelerating toward the inner system, toward Earth. The three dreadnoughts immediately shifted position, their perfect triangle breaking as they aligned themselves between Earth and the approaching entity. Lysina's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The legends. They didn't say the dreadnoughts were built to fight other species. They said they were created to battle something ancient, something from beyond normal space. She looked at Ralger with undisguised fear. "Governor, I believe we've just witnessed the return of that threat." As if confirming her words, the main view screen changed again. "The Voidborn returns. Your incursion disturbed the seals. Flee or be consumed with US. The Voidborn. Jirith looked from the screen to the approaching horror. What is a Voidborn? But there was no time for answers. The entity, the Voidborn, accelerated suddenly, covering the vast distance between Neptune and Mars in moments. The Aldari fleet, positioned near Earth, now found itself directly in the path between this cosmic horror and the three dreadnoughts aligning to meet it. Governor, Jirith's voice was urgent. We must withdraw. Whatever conflict is about to occur, we have no place in it. Ralgar knew his deputy was right, but pride and duty warred within him. To return to the High Council, having fled without engaging the supposedly primitive Earth, would end his career, possibly his life. The decision was made for him when the Voidborn reached the outer ships of his fleet. The vessels simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris. They were there, and then they weren't, as if they had never been. All ships, emergency withdrawal. Ralgar shouted, maximum distance, prepare for void jump. As the Aldari fleet scrambled to retreat, the three dreadnoughts moved with sudden, coordinated purpose. They positioned themselves in a new formation, equidistant from each other, and began to emit a strange blue-white energy that connected them in a triangular pattern. Governor, the sensor officer called, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the Earth vessels. Nothing like our weapons systems, more like some kind of resonance field. Before Ralgar could respond, his mind exploded with images not his own, visions forced into his consciousness with such violence that he cried out, clutching his head. Around him, the entire bridge crew suffered the same assault. Ralgar saw Earth as it had been eons ago, saw humans, not so different from their current form, facing the Voidborn as it emerged from a tear in space. Saw entire continents laid waste, billions dying as the entity fed on their consciousness, their memories, their very souls. Then he saw the creation of the Dreadnoughts, not built but grown, living metal infused with the collective will of humanity's survivors, programmed with one purpose: to trap the Voidborn and prevent its return. The desperate plan succeeded, but at terrible cost. The Dreadnoughts, too powerful to be allowed free rein, yet too essential to destroy, were hidden away beneath Earth's oceans, paired with a global psychic defense network that would keep the Voidborn trapped between dimensions. A defense network that had been functioning flawlessly until the Aldari fleet arrived and disrupted its subtle energies. The visions faded, leaving Ralgar gasping for breath, staring at the view screen where the dreadnoughts now shone with blinding intensity. The triangular energy field between them expanded, reaching toward the Voidborn, which seemed to recoil. It's not a weapon, Lysina said weakly, also recovering from the vision. It's a cage. They're reconstructing the prison. As the Aldari fleet retreated to what they hoped was a safe distance, the battle, if it could be called that, unfolded in utter silence. No weapons were fired. No explosions lit the void. Instead, the energy field from the dreadnoughts enveloped the Voidborn, which writhed and contorted, its tentacle-like appendages thrashing against the containment. Where the entity touched the energy field, ripples of distortion spread, as if reality itself was protesting the contact. Several more Aldari ships that had been too slow to retreat were caught in these ripples and simply winked out of existence. It's feeding on them, Lysina whispered in horror. Not destroying, consuming. Their matter, their energy, their very existence. Ralgar watched, transfixed by terror and awe, as the three dreadnoughts tightened their energy web around the Voidborn. The entity's struggles grew more desperate, space warping around it in increasingly violent patterns. Then, from Earth itself, massive beams of the same blue-white energy shot upward from a dozen points on the surface, mostly from beneath the oceans, but also from what appeared to be ancient structures hidden in mountains and deserts. The beams connected with the dreadnoughts, strengthening their field. They planned for this, Ralgar realized aloud. All of it, the hidden ships, the surface installations, the psychic defense network. Earth hasn't been defenseless all this time. It's been standing guard. The Voidborn gave what seemed like a final, desperate surge against its prison. For a moment, the energy field wavered, and Ralger feared it would break free. But then the Dreadnoughts pulsed with renewed power, and the entity began to shrink, compressing into itself as the field contracted. With a final reality-bending distortion that sent sensors across the Aldari fleet into overload, the Voidborn collapsed into a singularity-like point of absolute darkness. The Dreadnoughts maintained their triangular formation around this point, the energy field now a perfect containment vessel. Slowly, the surface installations ceased their energy transmission. The Dreadnoughts dimmed, though they maintained their positions around the captured entity. The battle was over. Earth had won. Ralger released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Around him, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. "Governor," Jireth finally spoke, his voice hollow. "We should contact the High Council. They must be informed of this." Ralger nodded numbly. How could he explain what they had seen? That Earth, far from being a primitive world ripe for conquest, was in fact the warden of a cosmic prison, housing an entity that consumed existence itself. That humans had developed technology, or something beyond technology, capable of trapping such a being? Before he could formulate a response, the communications system activated once more. On the main view screen appeared a final message. "Remember why you survived. Do not return. We stand eternal watch." As they watched, the 3 Dreadnoughts, their task completed, began to descend back toward Earth's atmosphere. With the same impossible grace with which they had risen, they sank toward the oceans from which they had emerged. "They're returning to hibernation," Lycinus said softly, "until needed again." Ralger nodded, understanding at last. Earth had never been defenseless. Its apparent technological backwardness was irrelevant, perhaps even intentional, a way of focusing inward rather than expanding outward. While other species conquered stars, humans had appointed themselves guardians against a threat most of the galaxy didn't even know existed. "Set course away from this system," he ordered quietly. "Send word to the High Council that Earth is to be marked prohibited. No contact, no colonization. Attempts. And if they ask why?" Jireth questioned. Ralger watched as the last of the Dreadnoughts disappeared beneath the Pacific surface, leaving the blue planet once again appearing peaceful and unthreatening. "Tell them." He paused, searching for words that could possibly convey what they had witnessed. "Tell them Earth is already occupied by heroes and horrors beyond our comprehension." As the Aldari fleet engaged their void drives and slipped away from the solar system, Ralger took one last look at the unremarkable blue-green world growing smaller on the view screen. He thought of the millions of humans going about their lives below, most likely unaware of the ancient guardians sleeping beneath their oceans or the cosmic horror they kept contained. Did they know? Did they remember the sacrifices of their ancestors, who had created living metal ships infused with humanity's collective will? Or had those memories faded into myth and legend, just as the Dreadnoughts themselves had become nothing but stories to the rest of the galaxy? It didn't matter. Earth protected itself, with or without its inhabitants' knowledge. The Dreadnoughts would rise again if needed, awakening from their oceanic slumber to face whatever threatened their world. And Ralger, who had arrived as a conqueror, departed with a newfound respect and fear of the quiet blue world and its silent guardians. Behind the Aldari fleet, Earth continued its eternal orbit, a seemingly ordinary planet concealing extraordinary secrets beneath its peaceful seas. The Dreadnoughts rested once more in their watery berths, the Voidborn safely contained within their psychic prison, waiting, watching, ready, because the galaxy might think Earth defenseless, but the Dreadnoughts knew otherwise, and they would always rise when called.